then that's just going to reinforce that pattern yet again in our mind. So the mind's like, oh, this happens, we do this. Hey, welcome back to Uncivilized Rebirth. Here's a place where I share what I've learned and what I've come up with on navigating really difficult situations in life. And now, you are my mission. So last time I talked a little bit about how the brain is a bonsai tree. But that's kind of like indicating growth. It's time to grow. What if you're at a point in your life where you are sick and tired of where you're at, where all the paths you've taken have led? Now you're ready to grow. You're ready to be your own person. And what does that mean exactly? Does that mean I'm going to wear shoes that I like, or I'm going to dress this way, or I'm going to buy this certain type of stuff? Or is that maybe something deeper of like, this is truly what I want to believe. This is how I want to think. This is how I want to conduct myself. And this is the people that I want to associate with. This is the input that I want going into my mind. And that's a little more depth on a personality than just what you wear and what people expect you to be. Because if we stay around the environments that we grew up in, and some of those are very unhealthy environments, then it is easier for us to keep playing the role that we were put into or that we were forced into. And so people will do things on purpose to try to get us to act the way we would have in the past. In reality, maybe we don't want to be that way. But what this does is give them validity to say, see, that's just them. That's how they act. Or that's just them being them. Well, how do you change that? Like, how do you change the outside world from having you react on the inside? As in triggers or the way we react. Well, that takes time. It takes time to regrow your brain. And what I mean by that is to basically change the way your brain responds to the world. Because a lot of times we can go through life just reactive. Like, we saw somebody else do this, and so monkey see, monkey do, we react in that manner. But when we start becoming aware and realizing that these are programmed in responses, we can start overriding those responses and be spirit-led in essence, or whatever you consider you to be. It's not your brain, I'll tell you that, and it's not your body. It's more than that. And the goal ultimately, I think, in life is for you to be guiding yourself, not the outside world. Because for me personally, I know for a fact that I have been in religions before, not by choice. And those led nowhere. It was just an unending line of like, do this and do that, like rinse and repeat. It's like, there's got to be more to life than this. So if you're stepping out on your own and ready for that, it takes time to basically cut yourself out from the situations that you're in. Because I kind of believe this and I kind of don't believe it, that you must be by yourself or in a different situation with different surroundings to start changing inherently. Like, change how you conduct yourself, how you think, and how you want to talk. Because every time we are back in those situations and people can trigger us or get us to act the old ways, then that's just going to reinforce that pattern yet again in our minds. So the mind's like, oh, this happens, we do this, so I'm going to make it so much easier for this to happen every time, even though you may not want that to happen. So let's go back to the example. Let's say the brain is a bonsai tree, and there's a certain branch that goes up to the right and ends at a flower. And this is in imagination land. So imagine the tree sees a certain bird, and it automatically, the signal goes up that limb and that flower blooms. But what if the tree is like, you know what, I don't want that flower to bloom when I see that bird? Well, there's almost like a signature built into that. And so it's like, what I'm trying to draw here is a comparison of, let's say you see somebody, and when you see them, you you just start acting differently. You go nervous or silly. And so for me, when I was younger, like seeing a beautiful woman, like I just go into dumb mode. And then the more acted that way, the more I would go into that mode instead of being focused and staying on point. And that's not to get their number. It's just like when I see somebody externally, I shouldn't change how I act internally. So I have to change where the energy goes into my brain and what processes are activated. So that means like, how do I talk? How do I walk? How do I conduct myself? How do I turn off these triggers, these external triggers? Like I said, that takes time and it takes planning. You can't just go into something like the human brain chaotically and expect to have like a really solid output. And so the world is putting a lot of chaos into our brains. So how can we expect to have a solid output when we're just getting chaos? So what I mean by that, having a plan, is like, you need to know, and I'm not sitting here saying you need to blah, 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 because like, this is still for me to know and keep aware in my mind. I need to think about how I'm going to act. I need to think about how I'm going to talk. I need to plan how I'm going to conduct myself in different situations. I need to have a process in place of what am I going to do if A, B, and C, and D happens. Because the only thing I can truly control in this world is my body and my brain. And if I let the outside world start controlling that, then I lose my own freedom and my own autonomy, that I'm turning that over to other people. So in planning that, you have to be, I think, very wise about that. Because I know when I was younger, I would get into this thought process of like, if somebody made me mad or wronged me, I would just start going over and over and over in my mind of what I'm going to do next time, what I'm going to say to get them back, and what I could have said. And so like that is taking up my creativity and resources in my brain. It's taking up a whole lot. And then it's creating new recordings. So now when I go there and I see this person or do it again, or interact with them again, I'm more likely to do something a little more chaotic out of that or those ideas I was having to get back at them. And what purpose does that serve? So it's like, that is then becomes like a long-term programmed response of like, okay, my brain is going to go into like overanalyze mode for days to get this person back verbally. Is that really what I want to do? Like, that's just like a droplet in the ocean of the way that our brain can be controlled externally or have bad processes programmed in. And so for me, I didn't want to do that. I did not want to just go on for days and days replaying this bogus thing that happened and then trying to come up with responses or ways to get them back. I'm going to keep the video a little shorter today. Anyway, of all 17 people that watch. So I'm sitting there like, okay, I don't want to do this. What do I do? So I came up with this process, and I've shared it in past videos, where I draw out a little library book, which is like a symbol for a library in my brain. And then I walk into the big library that I've created, and I sit down and I open a book, and I write down what that person did. And then I write down what my emotions were, and then I close the book and put it away. So what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and taking that memory, and I'm going ahead and processing it and filing it away. And that way that memory is not constantly popping back up, and it's not going to be populating those negative emotions all the time. And if it does pop up a time or two, I go ahead, go back in, write a little more detail, and then I put the book away again. And I do that visually in my mind. So now what I'm doing is I'm training my brain not to get mad, not to play all these emotions, not to play the memory over and over and over, because the more you play that memory... So check this out. You play a memory in your mind. In that moment of that memory playing, you're creating a new memory. So you're just reinforcing the old memory. So basically, it's like you're putting a copy on top of that original one because your brain is always recording. So think about that. It's like you're making a copy of a copy every time you watch a memory. So go ahead and put it back in there. And then you choose, or I choose, like how I'm going to react the next time. And a lot of times it's like, I'm going to be non-reactive. I will not say anything and I will not do anything when I go back by this. And that's hard. That's very hard historically when your brain's been programmed to have responses. So that's just one of the myriad of ways of like changing the way we respond to the world. We could respond to commercials we see. It's like, oh, I see this. I got to go get that new thing. We'll go in deep and be like, why do I need to get that thing? Is that to compare myself to somebody else? Is that to look cool riding down the street? Is that to try to impress a woman? Is it because just I see it on the TV and I think I need it? Does it serve utility? Oh, utility. Cool. 4 bowls that work really well, and I don't have 4 bowls. That's utility. I'll get those. But do I really need to go buy the new iPhone? No. But if I see commercials over and over and over, that gets it planted in my brain of like, oh, I need to go get a cell phone. Because it gets locked into your brain, and then your subconscious sees a commercial with all these people, enjoying the phone. And those ideas get buried deep in your brain. How do you combat that? Here's what I do. I don't let it get into my visual memory in the first place. What I do is I start drawing a 3-dimensional pyramid in my mind with 4 sides, and then I invert it. So now there's 2 frames in my mind of the pyramid, and then I start spinning them in different directions. Do you know what this does? This takes up all of my brain power. Like, this takes focus and creativity. So my energy is going towards my imagination while this visual thing is playing or this person is talking. I totally shut them out of my mind. So that way they have no input in my brain. So now my brain is recording that, and the energy in my brain is going to my creative center that I have control of. And now it's recording 2 pyramids that are just the frames spinning in opposite directions on top of each other. And that takes a lot of brain power. If you can get to that point to drawing those and flipping them upside down, or just one of them, and then having them spin different directions, that takes a lot of brain power. So I will do that if somebody starts telling me a story, because here's another rabbit trail. Like, people will start telling you stories and explaining things and then asking you if you understand. And they're trying to find out if you're drawing that picture in your brain, because there's a whole underlying thing in the world that a lot of people don't know. And there's these teachings out there of how to get in your mind and how to set up energetic tethers. If you don't like me saying this and you're triggered by it, sorry. Like, it's just the way it is. Not to be rude, but go look it up. Like, do research for yourself. So what these people do, they'll start explaining things in great detail. They'll find out if you're drawing it in your brain, if they have access to your imagination. And then what they'll do is, now they have this strong foothold in your mind. They have created a very strong, detailed memory, which creates the energetic tie to your mind. And then they will wrong you in the most subtle ways and anger you. And then they will act like, and most likely they will have done something nice for you along the way, like a favor. So now they've created an energetic foothold in your brain, and then they've wronged you, which creates anger inside of you, which is an energy, and now they can feed off of that energy. This is getting into the spiritual workings, the dark arts. And so now whenever, like, they've done something so subtly to you that you can't really prove it, but you know it's true. And then what they can do is other people will say, oh, I tried to help them out. I did this favor and that favor. When they know in reality they were setting you up. Here's the truth. The world is full of evil people, straight up evil people. And they have secret practices that are not taught in schools, not taught in college, and you're not going to find online, because this stuff is secreted from ear to mouth, and it's real. So now they've got a foothold in your brain, and every time you see them, they know you get mad and they feed off of that negative energy. Have you ever heard of an energy vampire? Or how a narcissist wants supply? That supply they want is that energy coming off of you. That's what they need. And so there is specific ways to create energetic tethers into a person. So when we get into the world of going in and changing internally and cutting the whole world off externally and choosing that we want to be in charge of our body and our mind, the rabbit trail is almost unending because it opens up this massive world that you never knew existed. It's just right behind everything, if that makes sense. There's like this veil that gets lifted and you get kind of inducted into this whole world of just nasty, evil mechanisms that are out there. So it takes time. And one more thing, if you have people in your life that are just not good people and they are bringing you down, probably, and it could be family, one of the hardest things is just cut those people out, because you're not going to be really able to pursue change and step into who you're meant to be if you're still hanging around those people that get these responses out of you. Because a lot of times, you're the piece of the puzzle that fits into that dynamic. It could be a family dynamic. And if they don't have that piece of the puzzle, the way you fit in, they don't want you there. But if they were good people, they would want you there no matter what. But as soon as you don't feed their purpose, they no longer accept you. So if you look at groups or cliques or groups of guys, there's the one guy that's barely accepted, the big main guy who's the awesome cool guy, and then the two medium ones. One's maybe very smart, and then one's just the real, the secondary to the main guy in the group. Well, when one of those people does not fill that role anymore properly, they will ostracize or just kick that person out. Done with them. Because that person no longer validates them for who they are and how they're acting. Humans and ego are strange. But the thing is, egos have been studied, and the brain has been studied at a very deep level in a secret way that's not taught, to go in there and control and study and understand. But even outside of schools of learning, the human system automatically sets up like that. And when you stop filling the role that people want you to fill, you're going to be kicked out. And that's kind of hard. And being not accepted is difficult. But one of the most powerful things is when you're not accepted and you validate yourself and you're absolutely okay with being seen by yourself, and you validate yourself and you need no external validation, that means you're stepping into your personal power. You're basically a power outlet, if you think about it. Because if you throw a baseball, you're putting energy into that baseball. Where did it come from? Where did the energy come from? Where's the energy come from that's going into your brain? It's coming from somewhere. If you look up the chakras, like the root chakra, you're getting energy from that. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. I've never held up a chakra and seen it. But there's different schools of study about our energy systems and how our energy flows through our body and where it comes from. So basically, we're in a socket. We produce energy. If you see a brick mason out there or somebody doing yard work and they move a ton of leaves, it took energy to move all of those leaves. So let's say the employer pays that person $10 an hour and they work for 5 hours to rake the whole yard. But the employer got $200 to rake the whole yard. But the employer had the employee do it. So the person worked for 5 hours, making $10 an hour, they get $50, while the employer gets $150. Well, you did $200 worth of work. You expended that amount of energy, but you only got a portion of what you are owed, of what you are worth. And we have to realize our self-worth is far more, and our energy output is worth far more than the way we are compensated. I know in the past, I've worked laboriously for barely anything, knowing that my output was high quality and I was not nearly being compensated. So that's our energy output. Like, the more quality of energy output that you can do, and it can be trained and honed to be done in a specific way, the more valuable you will be to a company, and they are going to not tell you how valuable you are. They're going to keep you at a level of like, gotta keep you in check, can't let you know how valuable you are because you're outputting your energy in a very specific manner that makes us way more money than you're getting. Anyway, there's a rabbit trail. Okay, I'm done. Roadhouse, spiritual hard.